Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Just a Few. My name is Patrick Antwine, and I have the opportunity through this platform to address questions that require a biblical response. If you have a question and you would like to ask me to provide you with a response, please submit it via email to the email address on your screen now. And as soon as is possible, I will try to provide you with a response. Today's question has to do with a statement Jesus made in the Gospels related to the end times or the return of Christ. The question is, will the days get shorter just before Jesus returns? Now, this question has been asked of me a number of times over the years by different people. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, we are located geographically, I think it's 10 degrees north of the equator. So we don't really have typical 4 seasons that most people have. If you go further north of the equator, you'll find that during the northern summer, the days are longer and the nights are, relatively speaking, shorter. And then when you get into December, January, February, the northern winter, the days are shorter and the nights are longer. That has to do with the changing of the seasons and the angle of the sun relative to the earth and so on. That's geography. Of course, if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's reverse. Wintertime is in June to September. Summertime is December, January, February for those in the southern hemisphere. But even here with us here in Trinidad and Tobago, 10 degrees north of the equator, we do experience it during June, July, August, longer days. Relatively, that's about an hour extra, and then about an hour shorter during the northern winter. So during those times of the northern winter, you'll often hear people saying, well, the days are really getting shorter. And the Bible said that in the last days, the days are going to be getting shorter. Is that what Jesus meant? I guess this is what this person is asking. And that question comes out of a couple of verses in the Gospels that I would read from both Matthew and Mark, where it's found. And you'll see what Jesus said, and I'll then explain to you what he meant. Matthew chapter 24, verse 22 says, and Jesus is talking there about the tribulation period and the days leading up to his return and so on. He says, and unless those days were shortened, here's that term, no flesh would be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. In Mark's Gospel, it says it similarly. Mark chapter 13, verse 20, and unless the Lord had shortened those days, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he chose, he shortened the days. So some people read that and they come away from the Bible saying, yes, the Bible really says the days will be shortened. So it's around Christmas time, you're living in the northern hemisphere, and you see the days are getting shorter, getting darker earlier, and people say that's what the Bible meant. No, that's not what Jesus meant. Jesus was speaking of the tribulation period and the carnage and devastation that would be experienced against mainly the Jewish people during that period. He was referring to the length of the tribulation period that God would allow this person who will come on the scene, this world leader named, whose title, Antichrist. God would allow him a period of time in which he would, under the sovereignty of God, be allowed to persecute the Jewish people, persecute those who refuse to take the mark of the beast and so on. That's what Jesus was referring to. The length of the tribulation period will be restricted by God. And if God doesn't shorten the length of that period and limit it to what it is revealed to be, no flesh would be saved. In other words, Antichrist will be on such a rampage, and the carnage that would be left in his trail, if God does not intervene and bring an end to the tribulation period, no flesh will be saved. Every Jew will be killed. Everyone who refuses to take the mark of the beast will be killed. And that's what Jesus meant by shortening the days, not shortening the length of each day of the week or whatever. He meant the length of the time of the tribulation that would be allowed for, as Daniel would say, the saints to be given into the hands of the Antichrist. So let me just read a couple of verses in Revelation and Daniel to bring this to an end, so you'll see what I mean. Revelation chapter 13, verse 5, speaking about the Antichrist and his persecution of the Jewish people during the tribulation, it says, "And he, Antichrist, was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months, 3.5 years." Verse 7 of that same chapter says, "It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation." Daniel in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25 said that hundreds of years before Jesus. And Daniel 7:25, again speaking of Antichrist, says, "He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time." That last expression is a Jewish Hebraism, which means a year, 2 years, half a year, 3.5 years. Same thing, John says 42 months. And it's believed that in the latter half of the tribulation, which is called the Great Tribulation, the persecution against Jews and people who turn to Christ and reject the mark of the beast during the tribulation will be so bitter that unless God intervenes and by his sovereignty limits the length of time that Antichrist is allowed to have his way, no flesh will be saved. And it has nothing to do with how many hours in a daily cycle. So that's what Jesus meant. Has everything to do with what can be expected during the tribulation and how the sovereign God is going to allow Antichrist only 3.5 years, which is the second half of the tribulation, to really be viciously persecuting those who will not submit to him. My name is Patrick Antwine. Thank you for the question. I hope that clears up that issue about shortened days. And if you have a question, like I said, please submit it as I indicated earlier via email. Until the next time, grace and peace be multiplied to you.